Hello, this is KCMB-TV, and we are here at the legislative offices of New York State at Albany, New York. Here, students, parents, and community leaders have gathered alike for the REACH Coalition's 2025 Advocacy Day, where they will be advocating for and showing support for the New York State Senate Bill S334, which calls for Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander history curriculum to be incorporated into New York State schools. So you're the sponsor of the bill. Why is this important and why does this matter?
It's important because for far too long, Asian Americans have been invisible. And when we are invisible, people don't acknowledge us. It's that much easier to blame us for global pandemic, economic turmoil, worldwide conflict. We get blamed because it's easy to blame people that you don't know a whole lot about. And that's why the key to eradicating hate and racism against Asian Americans is by teaching our students and the future generations that, hey, we Asians are like as American as anybody else. And that is the thrust of our legislation. It's not easy to pass, but we're going to keep pushing until it becomes state law.
This bill is important because we need to be able to teach Asian American history in classrooms. When we are not seen in history books, we are not recognized as part of American history. Asian American history is American history, and it should be taught for all of our students to learn more about Asian Americans' contributions to the American fabric of life.
Advocacy Day up here in Albany is very important because it shows that the community cares about certain issues and topics that are important to the community. We come up here to Albany where the legislators are currently deliberating and working hard for their constituents, and us being here shows them that the community does support certain things like the AANHPI curriculum bill. Now, I know this bill doesn't mandate the actual teaching of it, but it establishes a curriculum that can be taught, and this is part of a bigger effort in trying to make sure that we have more inclusive education here in the public schools in New York State.
So for those who couldn't make it to Advocacy Day today, what could they do to support or advocate for AAPI curriculum in schools?
Sure, so we're up here right now with the REACH Coalition. One very simple thing you can do is join the REACH Coalition. We have QR codes and links on our Instagram pages and our newsletters. If you need one, reach out to us, join it. We have newsletters, different ways that you can help out, community events that you can show up and show your support. You can write letters to your local elected officials and your state elected officials for why this bill is important. And in future advocacy efforts, you can also join us as a committed REACH Coalition member.
I'd love to hear more about your specific project. It's for the Localized History Project.
Okay, great. So as I mentioned, I did a project last year, and I'm currently doing one this year. So last year, my project was on the Chinese Latino community in New York City. So like I mentioned, I'm Chinese Ecuadorian, and I wanted to uplift my own community and kind of explore our history through the lens of Chinese Latino restaurants in New York City. So if you've been to New York City or maybe you live here, Chinese Cuban restaurants and kind of Chinese Latino restaurants are a special trademark that we see in New York City that I think aren't as common in other cities in America. And so I wanted to explore my community's history through that lens of Chinese Latino restaurants. And for this year, I'm exploring the history of bicultural and bilingual education in New York City, in specifically Two Bridges, which is a neighborhood in the Lower East Side. During the 1960s, late 1960s, early 1970s, there was solidarity between Black, Asian, and Latino communities in the Lower East Side specifically, advocating for Spanish and Chinese language and cultural instruction. So, yeah.
And I remember when you were giving a presentation, you were talking a lot about there being like a missing gaps in like the curriculum and stuff like that. Has there been any challenges when you were conducting your own research regarding like lack of Asian American API curriculum, etc.?
A lot of my own research for my Chinese Latino history project was rooted
Can I get your name and affiliation, please?
Yeah, my name is Ravi Vora, and I'm a high schooler from Westchester County, and I'm a youth researcher at the Localized History Project through the Asian American Research Institute.
Yes, I'd love to hear more about your project at the Localized History Institute.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the Gutter movement, which is a movement of Punjabi Americans in the west coast of the U.S. in the early 1900s. Consists mainly of Punjabi immigrants to the region who tended wanted to work in agriculture in California and Oregon, and they were fighting for decolonization in India, liberation from British rule, but in the US, and they did actually face some repression from the US government in the process.
So, I mean, I grew up in a community that, I was surrounded by people that looked like me in a very South Asian community in Jersey City. And I think growing up in a community like that, where I was surrounded by people of my heritage and culture, really empowered me to.
And I came here also because, I saw a problem in the education system, and it affects me, it affects my classmates. I've seen it firsthand, and so I wanted to bring my perspective to Albany here today.
Well, for me, I've noticed that my social studies curriculum that I've been taught has been heavily Eurocentric, and that carries on to other parts as beyond the school, such as like on the stage of my performing arts high school. So I've realized that a lot of our shows are heavily like white dominated, and so us like AAPIs, we don't have the opportunity or as much to step on the stage.
It's like they're neglecting a lot of like history of like marginalized communities that like face similar experiences and issues that like we have also faced, and like our history classes like usually tend to focus on like East Asians particularly, and like we kind of forget about like the voices that also kind of need to be like their stories that need to be told.